Hey everyone, thanks for joining. We are going to get started in just another minute. We see a number of people trying to log on right now, so we're just going to give them a few more seconds to do that, and we'll get started in just another minute. Thanks. Hey everybody, we're going to get started in just 1 minute. Okay, thanks for hanging out. We saw some people were on. Uh, one more minute. Thanks.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for the latest masterclass webinar. My name is Karen Cahill and I'm joined here by subject matter experts Scott Lawrence and Virginia Lewis.
Hi everyone.
Hey, can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I was trying to announce that we were about to get started, and apparently I was on mute. So.
Well, we've started, Scott. Before we officially get started, as always, we want to encourage everyone to submit questions and comments in the chat box. And we always provide an email address at the end of the webinar for additional questions you might think of after it's over. Also, we want absolutely all the feedback you'll give us. So please do tell us what you think about the content at the end in the feedback form, and maybe even give us some suggestions for future topics of discussion.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Response Mind Health, we've been in business for 19 years and we're a digital marketing agency with a focus on health and fitness related organizations, from organic and nutraceuticals to healthcare and fitness companies.
And since we're a digital marketing agency, we like to start by explaining how we define marketing, because it will help explain why we put this webinar together in the way that we did.
So at Response Mind Health, we believe marketing is about making sales. Marketing really is that simple. It starts first by understanding what your ideal prospects look like, which we're going to go over in a lot of detail today. And second, by knowing how to best interact with them. And those are two things that are among our best practices here at Response Mind.
And you know, to Virginia's point, when all marketing has to be tied directly to sales results, we think it's important to use digital marketing, which enables us to immediately see, click-through rates and abandon rate and sales conversions, of every single piece of digital media that we create in real time. So what that also means is that we're not in the business of putting up billboards or placing ads in magazines. We're strictly about trackable and traceable digital marketing that we can see in real time, driving sales results. So in the first half of this webinar, we're going to share some data about people who say they frequently purchase organic foods and natural dietary supplements. What they look like, purchase preference of men and women, purchase preferences of people by age groups, that sort of thing. And in the second half, we'll talk about the most cost-effective methods for reaching these people.
And before we move on, I feel that I should just interject that on previous webinars, we've seen that many people were just shocked that we were willing to share our research with them. Listen, we are going to share a lot of data on this webinar, and we couldn't possibly cover all of it in the length of an hour. But I want you to know that the spreadsheets, the charts, the crosstabs, all of these things are available to anyone listening today. Just ask for them. And here it is, our agenda for today. For those who have attended other webinars we've put on, you may recognize this format. We usually like to start by sharing some in-depth research and data on what your best prospects probably look like and what the competition in the space is doing. For the health food types, in the research section, we'll talk about the 300 organic nutraceutical and dietary supplement companies that we analyzed, referred to here as health food companies. And from that analysis, we categorized all 300 companies into 7 categories of messaging types. And the last step in the analytics was to survey their customers and ask them which of the 7 messages they liked and disliked. Then the second part of the webinar is about tactics, and we're going to share best practices for this industry using paid search and paid social marketing campaigns.
Hold on, Karen. I was hoping we could also mention that station identification bullet there in the middle.
I thought I'd let you do that, Scott.
Okay, well, the 4th bullet on the agenda is what I'm calling station identification, and it's just to tell everyone a little bit about ourselves. It's like a 90-second commercial, really, for RMI. And I just thought I'd mention it up front. I mean, we wouldn't be very good marketers if we didn't at least mention ourselves in our own webinar.
And the other thing we should mention that is not on this agenda is the feedback form, which is the very last part of the webinar. We really want everyone's feedback, but everyone doesn't always give it to us. So we're offering a special incentive for people who will fill out that form, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So now we're going to share what we did to gather all of the data.
Karen, just one more thing that I want to share with everyone before we get into that. We tried to gamify the webinar today by asking a couple of survey questions of you guys along the way. So we'll ask everyone to answer a question on the screen, and then we're going to compare your answers to the national polls that we've already taken. And it's usually pretty fun because you get to see how your answers compared with them. So we just need people to participate to make it fun. So I think now we're ready to move on and get into it.
Okay, thanks, Virginia. The first step in collecting the data that we're sharing today was to search for and find 300 organic nutraceutical and dietary supplement companies' websites. So Scott, would you like to tell everyone the acronym we're using for those 3 healthy food groups?
Yes, I would. We're calling them the DONs. It's short for dietary, organic, and nutraceuticals. So, but it's just easier to say, DON, as an acronym. I guess we could have called it, NODs, if we'd started with nutraceuticals.
Okay. So we went to 300 sites, analyzed all of the messaging on each, then bucketed the messaging into one of several categories. And here's the first page of that very long spreadsheet. You can see from left to right on the bottom half that we categorize them by company name, industry, meaning organic food and the other DONs, website URL, positioning statement, and their estimated yearly revenues.
And guys, in a minute, we're going to go over the difference between nutraceuticals and dietary supplements, at least as we define it, so we're all on the same page. Also, we're not putting this sheet up here with the expectation that you'll read it, and we couldn't possibly cover it all today, but we're just letting you know that it's part of the background data for this webinar.
And again, if you're interested in having the spreadsheet, just let us know. We're happy to send it to anyone on the webinar today.
Anyway, we bucketed the website's primary messages into one of several categories. For instance, most of these companies' messages were focused on demonstrating a quality product and used the word quality quite a bit on their websites. But some had a distinctively different feel to them than that quality.
Like fun, hip, and cool.
Right. The 7 message types we focused on are on the next slide, actually.
Okay, so the first one's pretty obvious, right? This is what the majority of the companies appear to be promoting as their primary message.
Yeah, but it may be important to note that we call this one top quality rather than just quality, because we wanted it to match the survey we held, which we'll talk about in a minute, where we asked healthy eaters what message actually resonated with them the most.
Right, top quality, but we may be getting ahead of ourselves.
Right, so that is actually on the next slide. But the other thing to note is that we called it top quality because of the next message category was value, which is really the combination between price and quality.
Right, like if you get a really good quality product at a great price, then it's considered a great value. Okay, the next one's my favorite. Fun, hip, and cool, just like Scott Lawrence. These ads make me think of those good-looking people in beer commercials having fun and yet looking very trim and healthy despite partying all night at the club.
Yeah, well, unlike beer, the products we're talking about appear to actually really be healthy and have a very positive vibe to them. They use bright color palettes, and they're very active environments, with imagery of people laughing and having a good time. A lot of healthy snack foods actually use this message.
And what types use the innovation messaging the most?
Mostly that was nutraceuticals, mostly. Many of them have almost like a science-y kind of a medical feel to them.
Okay, and corporate responsibility. We often highlight this one, even though it's not a top performer, as we're going to see in a minute when we're looking at user preferences. But corporate responsibility is about how the company gives back to society, like a company that gives some percentage of proceeds to causes that their consumers admire. But sustainability is a little less straightforward, in my opinion. You said this isn't actually about the sustainability of a product.
Right. This one is somewhat related to corporate responsibility because it's about giving back, but it's specific to the company's message that they're all about sustaining a healthy world.
Okay, and the last one, award-winning. That's not too difficult to decipher. They just mention their awards on their website, and that's their primary message. So a second ago, Scott referenced how nutraceutical organizations use the theme of innovation more than the other two dons. Well, next we're going to look at how all three types of companies, the dons, are using each of these 7 types of messages. So now we're going to start building these graphs as we talk about them. You can see the types of companies along the x-axis at the bottom, starting with organic foods, then dietary supplements, then nutraceuticals.
Also, we have a colorful legend at the very bottom, but we decided it's a little easier to read it if we put it on the left side too, for reasons that'll probably be obvious in a minute. So that's what's going on the left side now.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that nutraceuticals and dietary supplements are pretty similar, and you're going to show us, at least in part, how that's true here.
Right. So you can see that 5% of both nutraceutical and dietary supplement companies have a primary message of sustainability or striving to create a healthier world. So as we build this graph upward, you can see that quality and value are the next message types on the graph.
Let's take a look. That's still really close.
Yeah, these were 43 and 46% for quality and 4 and 5% for value. So yeah, still pretty close, you could say.
So Scott, can you give us an example of what a quality message might be?
Well, for instance, we categorized Alchemist Labs in this group because they highlight quality on their homepage and actually have a page dedicated completely to quality. And Robinson Pharma was also categorized there because of their quality of service. So we combined those two. On their website, they have this line: "We are one of only a few service health supplement facilities offering everything from product manufacturing to product testing."
Okay, good. And we're going to talk about how we differentiate between nutraceutical companies and dietary supplement companies in another minute. But let's look in the next message type, innovation. So you weren't kidding when you said that nutraceutical companies focus more on innovation.
Yeah, that's where these two start to really separate. It's nearly twice as much. Anyway, here's the rest of them.
It's interesting that the dietary supplements focused more on having a cool and fun message. So let's move over to the organic section, shall we? This is actually where we tried to gamify the webinar. So for a warm-up, everyone listening in, just think about this. Do you think organic food companies use the sustainability messaging more or less than the other two groups? Okay, let's see it.
Yeah, so by our analysis, 11% of organic foods companies use the sustainable message as their primary message.
So now we're going to ask everyone to vote on whether quality messaging was used more or less with organic food companies. And you should see a poll. There it is. We're asking everyone to choose if organics use that messaging more or less, and by how much.
And this is completely anonymous. It's just for fun. We won't hold it against you. Okay, the answers are coming in. We'll give you a couple more seconds, then we'll announce it. Okay, it looks like 2/3 said more and 1/3 said less.
And here's what the national poll showed. Organic companies actually use the quality messaging 50% more than the other two, as you can see here.
Yeah, it was actually 55% more. Anyway, here are the rest of the message types for that company.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in here. We don't really have time to go over it all, but once again, if you want the actual spreadsheets that this graph was built from, you can have them. We'll send them to you. But now we're going to switch over from what messaging companies used to what messaging consumers said they actually preferred. And here are the parameters for the national survey we held. We chose the age range of 25 to 74, and we wanted everyone to have a household income of $75,000 or more. And we also required a college degree. And then we specifically asked people about the 3 DOMs, which, for those who might have joined a little late, stands for dietary supplements, organic foods, and nutraceuticals. But we needed to drill down a bit more, so we asked them how often they purchased these items. And the 3 options that they had were frequently, seldom, and never.
Yeah, so the first step was to figure out who's buying organic food and the other DONs. Those blue bars on the screen represent the people who were frequent buyers of each of these items.
But you also described what each meant. I mean, I might not necessarily know the difference between a nutraceutical and a dietary supplement if asked on a survey.
Yeah, that's true. Because as we said, nutraceuticals and dietary supplements are pretty closely related. So for dietary supplements, we gave the example of vitamins, minerals, and omega-3 fatty acids. And for the nutraceuticals, we offered a definition saying that they are natural foods that might help prevent or treat disease.
And what we're looking at now indicates that more people said that they bought dietary supplements like vitamins than anything else. You know, given the size of the organic section at my grocery store, I would have guessed that more people bought organic foods than dietary supplements.
Yeah, that was a little surprising to us too.
So let's take a look at those who said they didn't buy these things frequently. So more people said they never bought nutraceuticals than any other group.
Yep, but we didn't really focus on those guys. In fact, for the rest of the webinar, we're really only talking about these guys right here, the blue guys on the left there, because we continue to ask questions of these guys after we determined they were in fact our target market.
And it's at that point that you asked them which of those 7 messaging types they preferred, from quality and sustainability to innovation and corporate responsibility.
Right. And we'll show in another minute that their answers sometimes differed by their demographics too.
In other words, they had different preferences for the messages based on whether they were male or female and depending on their age and so forth. Okay, so we're going to get into that more in a minute, but first let's take a look at what messages people said most resonated with them when buying nutraceuticals.
And here we are. When we ask consumers who purchase nutraceuticals frequently what brand message most resonated with them, we gave them the 7 choices we talked about a minute ago. So these 7 blue bars represent the primary message that they prefer.
In other words, a little more than 40% said that marketing that advertises the highest quality is the message that they most appreciated. And only about 4% said that a fun, hip, cool image was the primary message that it resonated with them.
Yep, you got it. And I think this is about what we expected too. So that's how people answered the question about nutraceuticals. Next, we're going to look at how people responded to dietary supplements, which we've already said are pretty similar.
Yeah, that does look very similar. Quality is the #1 consideration when evaluating messaging from dietary supplement companies.
So let's look at them side by side next.
Yeah, here we are. You can see on the left is a nutraceutical group and the right is a dietary supplement group. And they're very similar, but it looks like the dietary supplements customers ranked top quality is a little less important.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting is that these blue bars actually only represent their number one considered, their first choice. But when we look at their top two choices for messaging, quality is equal at 67% for both of them. For the top
That
two.
is interesting, yeah. So 67% of both groups say quality is in their top two choices for messaging. So let's see how many people chose top quality as their third through seventh choice. Now, there certainly weren't many people who chose quality as their least important message.
Yeah, in fact, no one chose it as their last choice for dietary supplements, which is why there's no bright yellow top to the column on the right. For that group, no one chose quality as their last or their seventh choice.
Okay, any more interesting findings, Scott?
You know, I don't know how interesting it is, but dietary supplement group, as a group, we're really down on fun, cool, and hip messaging. I mean, most were down on it, but they were particularly not fond of it. You can see that more than 6% ranked it last, and fewer than 10% included in their top 4 choices.
And award-winning didn't appear to be too important to most people.
Yeah, but not too many people ranked it last either, at least for dietary supplements. And we'll see in another minute that certain people within this larger group do actually like awards more than others. And knowing information like that is exactly what targeting is about.
Okay, so let's see the rest. That's pretty similar across the board. So now we're going to look at the organic group.
Right, but we're actually going to look more into the weeds at this point and start looking at the demographics within organics.
Okay, let's do it. So far, we've only looked at survey answers by the type of businesses they are, but now we're diving deeper by looking at gender. So we have the iconic pink and blue bars to show how males and females valued the 7 different message types when considering organic choices.
And we intentionally left a couple of these off because we thought it'd be fun to insert another little trivia question here. So take a moment, let's practice, and think about whether men or women would be more inclined to appreciate messaging that highlights a product's awards, men or women.
Okay, I think everyone's had a moment to ponder that, and let's show them. Men were much more impressed with messaging than highlighted awards than women were. So highlighting awards in advertising that targets men would probably mean better click-through rates and more sales. And if you have an award for quality, even better. Not to get too far out in front of our headlights, but we're going to find out that everyone cares most about quality, at least for organics.
Yeah, but now we're going to ask everyone to tell us whether more men or more women thought messaging that highlighted a good value was important to them.
Okay, folks, you should see the survey question on your screen. Again, it's anonymous. We'd like to see if your answers align with what we found in our national polls for how men and women ranked the value messaging. So just take a second to answer. It's anonymous.
Yep, it's dead even. It's almost dead even. Just a few more seconds here. Okay. And we've heard that there's a problem with submit button, so sorry about that. You can always chat us up if you like. Go to the chat box. Okay, so the results are, let's see, we had 55% who said that men cared more about a good value, and 45% said women. Okay, so let's take a look at what the national survey showed us.
You can see there's a pretty big difference.
There it is.
There? Okay. Yeah, there is a pretty big difference between how men and women rank the value question. Men cared less about value than women did. In fact, women chose the value message a little more than 50% more. That could be your dog, Scott. That could be
That's my dog, sorry.
that could be another good message to use in an ad targeting men, or maybe just insert an image of an award the company's won. That's as easy as popping it in the top right-hand corner of an ad. Kind of like this award RMI has won for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I had to mute because of the talk. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's really so easy that to use this intel with digital marketing. And of course, we're going to talk more about this in a minute. But when you know general preferences like these, you're able to cater your copy and your hero images as well as your targeting. It's easy to target people by a lot of demographics digitally, especially using social media.
And speaking of targeting, you have a graph on age as well, which is also easily targeted in many social media platforms.
Yeah, it's right here. It's coming up.
So we're going to build this graph again as we go. And once again, we're putting the legend down the left side of the graph, but this time we're putting age ranges along the x-axis at the bottom of the graph.
And everybody's probably used to this sort of graph, so we'll just show the first full column, the youngest age group first. And you can see it matched what we've already covered. The quality is the most favored message type, followed by sustainability. And of course, you can see the rest of the columns here now too.
So the first thing that popped out to me is that quality is the primary message for all age groups.
Yeah, that's true. But the larger point is that it wouldn't hurt to highlight value, quality, and sustainability in every ad and on every website. And that's a great thing to know. This stuff should really never be guesswork. It just costs too much to put bad marketing plans in place based on what people may assume or just think is the right answer. I mean, it's crazy how many marketing dollars are spent every day on the wrong messages. Decisions really need to be based on facts and data like this.
Now let's talk about those messages at the top. What to do with those?
Yeah. So 11% in the age range of 65 to 74 said innovation was the most important message in advertising. So, you just can't ignore that fact. It's easy enough to insert a little copy about how innovative, as you would say here, your product or process is for creating great quality products, and then target the older generations with that ad. Because, look how innovation matters less and less to young generations.
And the same goes for the fun and cool messaging. You've got about 8% of people in their mid-20s and 30s who say that their number one choice for messaging is something fun and cool. And then it just tapers off as we move into the older ages. It's good stuff to know when you can target by age.
Right. And we should just mention again that although we obviously don't have time to go over all the data today, we'll send the data to you if you want it. So for instance, if you want to know more about how one gender answered particular questions for nutraceuticals, or how many married people favored one message over another, anything really. I mean, we've got so much data on these people from political affiliations and so forth. You just look it up on the spreadsheets, and you can slice and dice the data however you like. Just let us know if you need help.
Well, we have one more slide to share on how people prefer to buy before we move into making the data actionable segment. And this one is on how people prefer to purchase these types of products. Here it is. So in order to decide how to craft the next segment, we needed to know if more people preferred to buy their DOMs online or in store. And as you can see here, more people preferred to buy dietary supplements online, and more people preferred to buy their organic food in store.
Yeah, and because we took this survey this month, we actually ended the question with the phrase, assuming COVID-19 passes and stores reopen fully.
And I suspect the number of people willing to purchase everything solely online has increased in the last 4 months, but looks like the number of people who want to buy in-store still edges out the number of people who want to purchase online.
That's true. Overall, 40% said they preferred to buy online, and 52% said they preferred to buy in-store. And here's something else to think about when we get into targeting using paid social. The majority of those in-store shoppers who said they would rather shop in-store were female.
That's interesting. So what about that middle one, Scott, the hybrid?
Some people prefer to window shop in person and then buy online. And it's a smaller percentage of people in the healthy foods industry, but at an average of 8%, it really shouldn't be ignored either.
At any rate, this survey dictated the way we fashion the rest of the webinar. We we knew we could craft the narrative one of two ways: selling online nationally or selling locally, driving in-store sales. So because a majority of people still prefer to buy in-store, we decided to focus on better digital marketing to drive in-store sales.
And we could have have a completely different webinar on selling using the Amazon model, from a warehouse where you don't even need a storefront, other than your website. And we could probably do that next month, perhaps.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Okay, as Scott said, we believe in figuring out who to target, then figuring out the best way for how to target them. So now we're going to touch on best practices for driving in-store traffic with paid search. But before we get into paid search tactics to drive in-store sales, we just wanted everyone to be made aware that this section might seem kind of technical for people who don't currently manage paid search campaigns. And that's because if we're going to provide real value in these webinars, we genuinely believe we should get into the weeds a bit. There's too much fluff in too many webinars.
And if it does seem complicated, just hang in there with us. It's only 5 slides, and then we're going to walk through how to set up and get your best results from social media. We only have a couple of slides on paid search that might seem a little bit technical.
And with that warning out of the way, let's get started.
All right, so we have 5 points on paid search that we consider best practices to drive in-store traffic in the healthy food category. The first of these 5 points is that we break out our paid search campaigns by 3 components: location, device, and match type that you see there on your screen. It's important because we found it actually improves reporting for the best combination of device and match types. So that means setting up each location by 3 devices and by 3 match types. So this location in Manhattan has 3 match types and 3 device types. There they are, okay. And we're going to use 2 locations to demonstrate, even though we know in retail it might mean dozens of retail locations. Anyway, the blue box on the left is the Upper East Side, and the yellow one on the right is going to be our Newark example. And then there are 3 types of matches going from top to bottom: non-brand exact, non-brand broad modified, and non-brand phrase. And there are 3 types of devices: desktop, mobile, and tablet, as you can see here. All right. And by the way, no one knows if the tablet device category will continue since fewer are being sold today. We think that mobile and tablet could potentially be combined in the future. So again, this slide shows that we've broken out our campaigns first by location, then by device type, and then by match type.
And just to reinforce what Virginia said in a different way, Newark is obviously its own location, so it's already broken out by location. Then we've got a non-brand exact match for desktop, mobile, and tablet. We also have a non-brand broad modified match for all 3 types of devices. And finally, we have a non-brand phrase match for the 3 types of devices. And by the way, we've gotten questions about using broad modified, and we're going to address that in just a minute.
Yeah, and when you think about chains that have multiple locations rather than just 2, as we had here with our example, we hope that you guys will agree that this model is a best practice.
Okay, second point. This isn't so much technical as it is just arduous. And that's because 1 keyword per ad group really means doing more work.
Yeah, this is one that some folks outside of RMI don't always agree with, but we would ask you to remember that Google and all search engines really want to give you the exact result you're looking for on your first search attempt. In fact, that's why Google search was able to steal the market share from Yahoo and web crawler and all those earlier search engines. Users knew that they would more quickly find what they were looking for because of Google's superior search algorithm. So Google likes to give precisely what the user wants, which is also why they created a quality score. Because if your ad is getting clicked on for certain search phrases more frequently, then you're providing better search results to Google search customers. So we decided that 1 keyword per ad group requires you to make your ad relevant and precise. And the more relevant it is, the better the click-through rates you're going to get. And that means you'll get a better quality score. And when you have a better quality score, you're going to have a lower cost per click. So you're going to have more clicks at a lesser cost. And having more clicks at a lesser cost is really what you should always be striving for. So we think that it's worth it.
Yeah, and because we're talking about geo-targeting, using a local search strategy, we suggest using city-related keywords prominently to ensure you're capturing an audience that is looking specifically for products in your area. Now, some of the paid search veterans listening in will know that city terms are going to have less volume, which is certainly one metric we look at. But city-related keywords usually have a much higher conversion rate because of how targeted they are. And they're often among the top performing keywords as well.
Yeah, yep, that's right. And to get the best outcome, you should combine the top performing keywords with all city names within your targeted area. I could almost feel some people wincing when we mentioned broad modified a couple of slides ago, but we think you should actually use broad modified as your match type to increase reach with city related keywords. And we know that broad modified, excuse me, might seem a little bit risky because by definition it's broad, but we found it's a safe play to use broad modified here with city related keywords, so long as you make sure you're using negative keywords.
And let me just add in that we never use just the broad match type, but we do use broad modified. And we use it as kind of like a funnel for phrases you may not have thought of. And that helps you to refine the exact match phrases. You can occasionally just run search queries to look for new keywords that then you can move over to your exact match. Okay, and the fourth point is that you should always remember the staples of a good search ad. You know, define the benefit, figure out the unique selling proposition, figure out what your offer is, and then always include a solid call to action so that they're reminded to act now.
Also, you're obviously limited by the number of characters you can use, but one way to showcase offers and benefits and unique selling propositions without sacrificing space is to add ad extensions. Call out extensions and structured snippet extensions can be used pretty effectively to add in benefits and promotions.
And this is the last slide on paid search. It's important to remember that if you're not measuring everything, you can't manage it effectively. So always keep your eye on the metrics all the time. Make adjustments and tweak ads that aren't performing as well as others. So people have asked us which of these key performance metrics on the screen is most important.
Yeah, and I always think it's a trick question because they're all really important. More to the point, they're actually all related. If your click-through rate goes up, your quality score will improve. When that happens, your cost per conversion goes down. An average position probably means a lot less if you're number 94 and improved by 40 places in a single week than if you slip from the number 1 spot in organic listings to the number 4 spot, which we're going to talk about a little bit later here. Anyway, the point is that it's important not to get hung up on one of them, but to monitor all of them.
Okay, the next section is tips for using the data in paid social. But first, this is where Scott wanted to insert his 90-second commercial for RMI, or what he is calling the station identification intermission. Scott, take it away.
Okay, well, like I said earlier, I'll make this quick. We just need to tell everyone who we are and what we do. And I think the best way to do that is by showing you 4 new one-time projects that we just recently developed. So the first one is for our paid search gurus. They come in, they assess your paid search campaigns. And if you felt like there were some helpful nuggets in the segment we just shared on paid search, just imagine what our paid search gurus might offer if they could look under the hood for your individual paid search campaigns. They'll give you a full report, which will invariably help you spend your paid search budget as wisely as possible. Okay, and this is also a new offer with this Adam Sandler looking dude. There's a lot that goes into search engine optimization. You know, in order to get your stores to the top of Google and other organic search results. So we actually have an SEO webinar if you're interested, let us know. Oh, and when I said that they're one-time projects, I forgot to mention that that's not usually how marketing agencies work. These one-time projects mean they're also one-time fees. So let us look under the hood and, you know, we'll provide an analysis and assessment, and we'll teach you to manage it after we've optimized it for you. And the same goes for social media, our third offer. We found that this is an often overlooked component that many retailers miss in their marketing campaigns, but it really matters. And it can take a lot of time to do if it's not set up correctly. You know, folks will do that for you. And finally, we found that a lot of organizations really struggle with the idea that not all prospects are worth the same amount. You know, not all products, nor consumer types, for that matter, have the same revenues or profit margins. Anyway, we've been talking a lot today about how different prospects have different preferences. So knowing exactly who to target and when and how to target them is a huge advantage to your bottom line. And we'll show you how to do that. And actually, you may recall earlier that Karen alluded to an incentive. And this is that free offer that we're giving away today for people who fill out the feedback form at the end. Or at least, we're providing a light version of this competitive audit. We'll check out 3 competitors that you give us that you'd like to be benchmarked against, and we'll provide a full report to compare your digital footprint to theirs. And that's the commercial rate.
Okay, the form is up on your screen, and we would really appreciate it if you would indicate your level of interest in any of these 5 new products. Please choose one option from the boxes on your screen. And we know that some of you may not be the right person for any or all of these, so you may need to check the box for your teammates. And if you think your organization would benefit from learning more, check the appropriate box and we'll follow up to figure out the best person. We'll give a little more time for everyone to respond.
And let me just throw in that we've got a not interested in there, guys. So we did that because, we know that not everybody's going to be interested. But if you would fill it out, I'd appreciate it. It's kind of like a grade for my 90-second commercial, if you don't mind. Just, you won't hurt my feelings unless you don't fill it out. Thanks.
Okay. Now, Virginia is going to cover off on how to make the data actionable using best practices in social media marketing.
Yes, so we're going to talk about paid social, but we're actually going to stay completely on Facebook. And there are 2 reasons for that. If we really want to provide real and solid advice that's meaningful, we'll need to focus on tactics specific to just one platform. So that's the first point, which leads us to the second. If we have to choose one platform, it has to be Facebook for a reason that we're going to reveal to you on the next slide. So if Facebook were its own country, it would be a world superpower, at least based on its number of users. Facebook has 2.5 billion subscribers, and the next largest social platform, Instagram, which is actually owned by Facebook, has about 1 billion users. You can see the others on the screen. Just to give you a sense for how these line up against countries, there are the 2 biggest countries, and here's the US, yep, and a few more. Because of Facebook's size, it often sets the pace and best practices for the other social networks. So if you're going to focus on getting one social platform right, it should probably be Facebook. Okay. And we feel like if you're, going to shell out money on Facebook ads, you got to follow the best practices of any advertising channel. Know your audience, tailor your content to fit that audience and your medium, and establish a clear measurement strategy.
By the way, we're going to get into more detail on all of this in just a minute, but I thought I'd also mention that we're in the process of creating an hour-long webinar dedicated completely to paid social marketing. So let us know if you'd like to attend that.
We've said that we're focused on driving local in-store sales. So let's talk about how to set up targeting in that way by focusing on our business owner here named Nancy. She's the proprietor of NutraNancy's.
And for those of you listening in, this is a fictional character based loosely on a real business here in Atlanta called Super Jenny, who makes the best organic soups ever. Get it? Super, spelled like soup. Anyway, if there is actually a NutraNancy out there, our lawyers would have you know that any similarity is only a coincidence.
So let's talk about how to use Facebook's targeting capabilities to find your audience online and drive in-store sales. From our data, we know that age is not necessarily a demographic that will help or hinder sales of nutraceuticals, but the messaging could be an influence. Well, Nancy has a nutrition-based store in Kennesaw, Georgia. In that area, the locals are typically middle-aged with high income. So let's take a look at how to set up this campaign in Facebook.
And again, to provide real value, we feel like we need to start this segment off with the basics of setting up a campaign, and then we can move into more advanced tips and tricks afterwards.
Right. So every campaign starts by choosing an objective. This is one of the most important choices you'll make. So it's very important to choose an objective that ties back to your business goal. Nancy wants to drive store visits, which means Facebook will optimize toward users who are likely to visit her store. So we're going to choose that objective. Okay, because we've chosen a store visits objective, we only want to show our ad to users who could reasonably travel to the store. Nancy knows her customers aren't likely to travel very far, so we've kept a tight 10-mile radius around her store. You'll also notice the box to the right displays what Facebook estimates your audience size will be. This can be really helpful as you build your campaigns, but it's also important not to treat it as gospel. Just use it directionally to ensure you're not targeting your audience too broadly or too narrowly.
So now that we have our location, we can start applying some demographic targeting layers that Facebook enables us to have, such as age.
Exactly. Nancy wants to differentiate her messaging slightly by age group. She knows she'll include quality and value and sustainability in every ad, but she's discovered that younger prospective customers are more amenable to the fun, cool, and hip message, while older people care more about innovation.
And that could mean keeping the copy the same for all ads, just modifying the hero image.
Yep, that's right. There are so many ways that she might go about this. If she's trying to drive in-store sales, she might also include a map image or an in-store discount or reference a landmark that everyone knows.
And we do that because it enables them to realize that with a 10-mile radius, it's very local. They've been there before, which tends to ease whatever discomfort or anxiety people, especially men, as Scott pointed out earlier, have for getting to a shop.
Yeah, well, we're getting into a lot of exciting tactics for creating and targeting an ad, but I should pause for a second and say that perhaps the most important point is to always A/B test your ads. You should change one element at a time continually. With Facebook ads, it's really, really easy to continually test to find the absolutely best performing images and headlines and written copy for a particular target. It takes time, but it's totally worth it to make the most out of your marketing budget.
And if Nancy has a limited budget, as really we all do, she'll want to focus as narrowly as possible for particular targeted segments like this age group.
But I wanted to draw attention to Facebook's detailed targeting right here. Facebook provides this targeting so that ads align with interests or behaviors that it's noticed about its users. So let's take a closer look at that. Okay, when you type in healthy in the demographics box, Facebook automatically suggests eating next to it. So we'll go ahead and grab that one. And we can choose healthy habits as an interest beneath it. But it also recommends other interests. All of these could be helpful in narrowing to exactly the audience that are most likely to purchase.
And that enables you to narrow your audience much more precisely, but of course, it's a double-edged sword when you narrow it so sharply.
Yeah, it can be. So take a look at what happens to Facebook's audience size meter when you add all of these targeting criteria. Facebook will warn you that your audience is too narrow, but then of course you and Facebook don't always want the same thing. And Facebook arguably wants as many people to click your ads as possible, but you want as many people to click your ads as will become customers.
So it's important to find a balance. When you target so narrowly that you're not reaching enough people to have an impact, it's time to consider easing off from Facebook suggestions.
Yeah, well, the reality is that no one actually knows exactly how Facebook quantifies who has healthy habits. And I don't say that to disparage Facebook's algorithms and calculations. I'm only suggesting that you can use these tools to narrow, and it can be very helpful. But the types of surveys we've pulled to get better data on healthy prospects isn't very expensive either. So we recommend that you do your own research or use the spreadsheets of data that we went over earlier. But know your target as well as you can and target them first by using standard demographics like Scott covered earlier, and cater your message to what you know is likely to resonate with them.
This is good stuff, Virginia. And I think you've got a few other fun, healthy nuggets.
Right. Well, because we also wanted to try to cover paid social on this webinar, I just want to hit on what our folks might consider pro tips for driving local in-store sales. The first is that we found utilizing Facebook's audience overlap tool helps with remarketing. Remarketing is, of course, what happens when we click on an ad or go to someone's website and then we start seeing their ads. That company is following us around the internet, hoping we still have an interest in becoming their customer. The second tip is to exclude recent purchasers in a local in-store campaign because those are people who are already buying from you online. By the way, you can run a marketing campaign for online sales congruently with the online campaign to drive in-store traffic. We've talked about A/B testing just a little bit ago, and it's super important. But even if you're not doing really strict continual A/B testing like we do, keep a vigilant eye on click-through rates and conversions for each ad. And just because you're driving in-store sales doesn't mean you can't also run a long-distance campaign. Of course, as we said earlier, those are different strategies, and it's really a different webinar. People tend to flip through Facebook pretty quickly, especially when they're on their phones. It's kind of just the flick of their thumb. So something as simple as an apple hanging in the breeze on an apple tree, or even an organic apple turning on a plate, is more visually appealing than a static picture of just an organic apple. And last one, most people access Facebook from their phones. Facebook gives you more room to write copy on your ad than paid search and other platforms, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should use it all. Keep it simple, but include the staples, a phone number and a map. On their phones, they can click to see how far away they are from your business using the map feature.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention this blog. Wait for it. A Good Fat ROI is a blog created by, it's not coming up. There it is. This is a blog created by Ken Robbins, who's the CEO at RMI. And he updates this blog frequently. It's got some great content and ideas for healthy related organizations, like many of the people who have joined today. So I hope you'll take note of it and subscribe to Ken's newsletter. And we're wrapping up now. So you should see on your screen a feedback form. As we said earlier, we'd really appreciate if you could fill out the feedback form, and please do indicate in there if you'd like to get that free competitive audit I mentioned earlier.
And folks, we've gotten word that not everyone can use the submit button, so you might comment in the chat box which segments you liked and which you didn't, by rating us great, good, fair, or poor for each segment from the research, the paid search and the paid social segments. And if you can do that, let us know. If you'd like that competitive audit, we'll still need your 3 competitors.
Right, and Kathy, the person on the screen here, would actually get that information from you, so you might take note of her email as well. You can send her the name of those 3 organizations that you'd like to be benchmarked against.
And by the way, anyone who attended today can also have a recording of the webinar. Just shoot Kathy an email or give her a call and we'll get it out to you.
Yeah, and just to circle back, ResponseMind is in the business of helping health-related retailers get better results for their marketing efforts. If you'd like help figuring out how to do some or all of that, or what we've covered today, please just reach out to us.
Yeah, and if you have any follow-up questions that you think of later, depending on whether you want to inquire about SEO or paid search or social media, Kathy really is the most connected person at RMI. So just reach out to her and she'll get you hooked up with the right person on our team.
Okay, that's going to do it for today. Thank you, everyone.
And for those of you still filling out the feedback form, we're going to leave it up for the next few minutes and give you a chance to finish that up. But we really appreciate you guys attending today. And we hope to see you again on a future webinar.
Bye until next time.